you look at the sparking story of success of BTS, you will realize that it only happened because everything went right for them. That is, the fact that HYBE was able to overcome external factors and the fact that their fan base was really, really strong because BTS was so phenomenal back then from their debut. Problem number one. Pledis Entertainment doesn't have the same situation. Their strongest marketable product coming from Joseph is 17. And even if 17 is successful right now, they don't replicate the same scale of cultural dominance or economic insulation that BTS provided, which means that Pledis remains far more vulnerable to all of the shocks, stagnation, and gradual decline that we have mentioned, especially because fifth-gen K-pop competition are super diverse. This is why the clear analysis from Joseph is crucial in assessing the current paradigm in this debate. In the current pop industry, you're also competing against other foreign-based groups like Cat's Eye, for instance, which means that, unlike second-gen K-pop, the industry right now is really, really hard for independent companies to survive, especially when majority of the groups that I have mentioned is under a big corporate monopoly, which is HYBE, for instance. In golf, it is not assured at this point in this debate, even after the whip, whether you can thrive within the aggressive waves of competition despite how they tried hard to skew this debate so far. The risks are higher, as we have mentioned, the margins are thinner, and the ceiling is much lower. Most likely, HYBE themselves will outcompete them with their own monopoly if they don't accept this offer. Second, if you realize the motion is just simply inoperational if you don't have any matter about K-pop. And all of the cases in both golf never happened. No one really have a matter in this motion for some reason. And CEO is the only one who bite the bullet of what's being asked within the motion. Third, I think most of them cannot dissect what Joseph has stated because what we have told you is that, yeah, you can reject the motion. That means you can reject the total acquisition of HYBE in itself. Stop debating in the debate land. That's not going to bring you any benefit in real life. Note, this is a THW motion, not a THR motion nor a THPX world motion. That call out from their whip is simply weird. First issue then, on the clash of control, on the clash over control. The main claim from Gov is that you will lose your power and control over your own success as an entertainment company. Which is untrue, by the way, because HYBE is a multi-label corporation. That's why Pledis operates autonomously in this land, maintaining its own production and management style. That's why the motion clarification tab was available in Discord for you to read. But sure, let's still engage, and this is going to be on the meta, and a lot larger flip than O's contribution. We say that this claim only proves our point. If Pledis doesn't really have any bargaining power, then rejecting HYBE doesn't magically create it. It just leaves them a weak and exposed in the market dominated by giants like SM, HYBE themselves, and YG. Especially right now, they're building a lot of monopoly and acquiring a lot of companies themselves. In that world, Pledis still has to compete for trainees, producers, media attention, platform visibility, and the international distribution that they have prospered. But now, without the backing of the largest infrastructure available to them, note, it is unlikely from side government that they have proven how this happens in their end. That means every vulnerability they say exists under acquisition, like dependence, asymmetry, lack of control, actually becomes worse outside of it. Because at least within HYBE, that asymmetry comes with resources, protection, and the market access that you have, which are at all exclusive in our side. You gain more capacity to forward every impact that affirmative wants. And this is what happens in the counterfactual. If Pledis says no, HYBE will not be the one that's primarily harmed. HYBE will just simply redirect capital elsewhere. You know what's the problem? They will just build rival groups and consolidate them in a market without Pledis. Problem, this is much more perverse, especially right now when the competition in itself is too crucial. This is why you need to jump into this first mover advantage. This is why CEO is crucial in assessing the real clash within this debate. In both options, you might need to accept some concession. But the thing is, the simple act of rejection simply puts Pledis in the worst possible position, which again gave no response from Gov on how are they going to thrive within Pledis, on how they're going to thrive with only relying on 17. You cannot really assure the success of the actor if it's dependent on one group that's not making a huge margin of change for your corporation. On how are you going to build your own legacy when both CG and OG claim that it's going to be good on them? Like how? How are you going to succeed if suddenly 17 disbands after their entire run because they're already old? So, sure, I'll take the PY.
Yeah, you have a certain amount of niches. If you go to whatever big company, you have to consolidate and like keep your artists with like the same amount of taste. You will lose the competition with BTS. You will lose records, and you have a certain amount of way that you have to compete with them. Hence, HYBE will just like disband you or like not give
You
you
mean
two
by
dates
that?
or etc.
Because Even if HYBE dictate terms, listen to this, Pledis still gains access to capital, infrastructure, and global reach that they could never build alone, which is strictly better than struggling independently with an unsure margin of success. So, that simple framing that a bad deal is worse than no deal, but in reality, no deal means gradual decline. When 17 disbands, you won't have any group to build because the trainees in K-pop industry are less likely to go into your company, then you are fucked. This proves why there's a massive loss of relevance and eventual force dependency under Goff's world. So, you only get the structured survival of the actor and the amount possible leverage for Pledis Entertainment in itself in the long term in our side. Second, their claim of cannibalistic promotion is simply out of this debate. Like, this is completely misunderstand how HYBE usually operate. They are not a single label system where artists compete for the same spotlight. But they are, as stated in the motion clarification, multi-label structure, as stated, that even if you don't have any matter on this, you should know that this is a place where each label manages its own group independently. So this looks like, even if HYBE sits at the top, Pledis still controls its artist, branding, and rollout strategies, meaning 17 is not suddenly fighting for BTS or any other groups for the same exact promotional lane. They do have their own corporate incentive to do this. In fact, HYBE intentionally segment markets, concept, and fan bases across labels so that groups complement rather than cannibalize each other since they are from different generation in itself. They have their own promotion, they have their own control. This allows for simultaneous promotion that expand overall market reach. So, again, but Goff claimed that, this is just a trap, which is, again, outside of the real matter. Like, if you call HYBE predatory, you just simply misunderstood their entire business model. The reason why they buy a lot of corporation is because they only want to make money. Your claim is true. HYBE wants to make money, but it's not a fast cash because HYBE operates as a multi-label system precisely to preserve identity while scaling resources, which means Pledis is not erased but amplified. So even from a purely economic standpoint, it is irrational to assume for HYBE to sabotage 17 or weaken Pledis because that directly reduces the harm of their own investment. One, they're not going to do this because this washes their incentive to do investment to do so. Then second, this opens more scandal for them in the landscape where a lot of K-pop fans are really, really harmful within their call out. And three, they don't have any benefit to do this. So at the end of this debate, you can just weigh this with one question. Do you choose an isolated independence that guarantees decline or a strategic partnership where your success is literally built into the system's incentive to make you thrive?